Hello, and welcome to Living a Graceful Life. I'm Denise Medved, your host, and I'm also the creator and founder of the Ageless Grace Brain Health Program, which is in 50 states and 30 other countries. The purpose of this show is to remind you that it's never too late to begin making choices to create the life that you want to live. And what do I mean by that? I mean more pleasure in your body, your mind, your spirit, your emotions. I mean more elegance of movement through your days. I mean more ease of negotiating and navigating all the weeks and days of your life and the ins and outs. So I'm really pleased to have our guest on the show today, who's a friend of mine and who's also an Ageless Grace trainer, as among many other things, which I'll tell you about later, because she's going to be talking about finding joy through reclaiming your authenticity. Powerful subject. So welcome, Margie. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Denise. I'm very happy to be here.
So, one of the things that I associate with Margie anytime I think of her is the word magic, because she has a lot of magic that is in her life and a lot of magic that she helps other people to find and claim in their own lives. So, let me just tell you a little bit about the many things that she has done and is doing. After 31 years of teaching music in elementary schools, Margie retired to pursue her passion for improving quality of life through music and through movement. Throughout her teaching years, she studied many methods and modalities that support teaching and learning, like Orff Schulwerk, 3 levels, Brain Gym 101, Optimal Brain Organization, Drum Circle Facilitation, West African Drum and Dance. And in 2013, she took her NIA white belt training, followed by the green belt and the blue belt. During that time, she also met me, and we fell in love together with Ageless Grace and each other. So, Ageless Grace is the perfect complement to her lifelong career in elementary music in the classroom because music affects the brain the same way movement affects the brain. Margie's also taught Ageless Grace in senior centers, at Parkinson's outreach associations, in assisted living facilities, and in memory care centers. She has a body of work that I love called Magical Child, which she created. And this work's dedicated to the feelings, the dreams, and the fantasies of our inner child. A typical Magical Child workshop would include music, movement, hands on creativity, storytelling, and more. And the more I know for sure is some really magical and fun props that we get to play with. I've been in several of her magical child workshops and play shops. She's frequently engaged to give talks and demonstrations at a wide variety of venues for numerous populations of all in and around Tallahassee, Florida, where she lives, and she's passionate about assisting others in living joyfully and comfortably in their own bodies. So, Margie, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank
Um,
you.
One of the things she's going to talk about is how we can rediscover our true nature and why it's so important to do that. So, I know about your magic, which reminds me of being a child, and I wonder what you loved most as a child and where your earliest sparks of joy came from.
Hmm. Great question. I loved riding a bicycle. I found a picture of myself at age 3, and I was on a tricycle. And I don't know who took this picture, but here I was. And I was in front of my 3 other siblings who are older than me, and I was roaring forward. Ah! And I have other photos of me getting on my bike. For me, it seems like the bike represented freedom, my ability to go. And often I'd go faster than what was in my best interest. However, the bike, dancing in the living room, putting on a show, it didn't matter if anybody was there. Often they weren't. But I can remember pulling out those LPs, from my mother's stereo cabinet, bringing them on down, lowering that needle, and getting to my spot to start the show. Making adventures, creating adventures, going to a movie, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or any movie, and then coming home and recreating it. So many things, Denise. I even gave it a whirl to walk on a tightrope, even though I knew the tightrope couldn't hold me. It was just between two living room chairs. But when we came home from the circus, I had it tied and I was ready. So it was this very powerful imagination and a tremendous desire to be expressive.
I can see that about you, even though I didn't know you when you were a little girl. And I know that also the way you dress is very magical and playful. And did that start as you were a child?
Uh, to a small degree. And then I didn't have so much freedom because, I was the fourth child, but I can remember a purple bell bottoms in my early teens. And, so when I was given the opportunities to start making those kind of choices, definitely a unique style. Mm-hmm.
Right. I can see that about you. So one of the things that Margie's talking about is the unknown things to numbing ourselves and not wearing pandemic masks, but wearing other kinds of masks that hide who we really authentically are. And so I'm curious, in your opinion, Margie, how and when does this separation of who we are really happen?
Well, I can only speak for me and perhaps some other people that I've been entitled to know their life story. But for most of us, it happens very early in life. It could happen as early as age 3. And when we're very early, our hearts are wide open. We take in everything uncensored. And then again, for me, little by little, these strict beliefs started coming into play. And please understand, I loved my parents, and this is not about disregarding what they did. These things happen, and we as children develop conditioning. And depending on our family, what are our beliefs? Is it prosperity? Is it scarcity? Is it worry? Is it affirmation? Is it who knows what? Is it that the mom was doing the best she could with what she had, and she was a minister's wife, like my mom was? I'll talk about that later. But as I'm saying, I believe that this idea of we may not be, quote, right. We may not fit in exactly. That begins pretty early. And then at some point, I feel we begin to discern that difference of, am I really being authentic to myself, or have I adopted somebody else's ideology? How does this feel in my heart? And this can be a conflict that can take way into adulthood to resolve, and we're lucky if we do. So I consider myself one of the fortunate ones. We know when we're not being who we are because it just doesn't feel right.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, with your 31 years as an educator, as a teacher, were you able to observe when children were behaving the way they thought they should behave, as opposed to, who is the spirit of this child? Who is this child really?
Absolutely. That's a great question too. I saw it. I very observant in the classroom, and I could see the children that wanted to be compliant. I had little routines and they would do them. They wanted to be compliant, but then maybe I'd see them out on the playground and they had a little bit of Margie in them. And, and then on the other side of that coin, Denise, I observed children, and this was sad to me. I'm offering a fun, moving activity with lots of fun props in the classroom, and I started to notice that some children, before they will engage in the activity, they are glancing, side, side, to notice if their peers are participating. And I have seen them either join in or shut down based on what they have perceived is okay.
Right.
So yeah, that starts real early.
That makes sense. And of course, I guess we really kind of get those foundations at home, about, I mean, again, not through any ill intentions, probably the best intentions from our mothers and dads,
Certainly.
but saying, now you be a good girl, you behave, you act like a lady. I don't know, I'm thinking about all the things I heard my mother and my grandmother and my dad say to me at different times, and I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted people to think I was a good kid, but like you say, sometimes my actual spirit got in the way, and I
Yeah.
would run around the room and not sit still in my seat or whatever.
My report cards most often said, Marghi talks too much.
And I say I'm so proud of my report cards that had all that writing on them. I made good grades, but then I was also hopping around the room and being myself at times, and that was not always, it didn't fit into the model of what they thought a first or second or third grader should do. So, well, tell me what steps you've taken to rediscover and reclaim your own authenticity.
I have 4. And interestingly enough, Denise, when you posed that question to me to ponder prior to this recording, I simply wrote down things that I know I do. And then it went straight back to mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. And, what a coincidence, right? It works. So the first thing I wrote, without thinking in terms of those categories I mentioned a moment ago, the first one was, I consciously move my body in a variety of ways. It's what I did as a little girl with riding the bike, with dancing in the living room. And when the body movement started, was it the cart before the horse or whatever, but the body movement begins to stop, the brain gets to shut down, we begin to close off. So moving my body was one of the key things I got back into. Connecting with the magic of my imagination. This is the thing. Are we human beings or are we human doings? Cliche, but true. So when we're human doings, in my world, there's no imagination. I'm doing it. And so the joy of working with the children when I was able to access that, and so much with Ageless Grace and Magical Child, connecting with the imagination, like I was doing the tightrope.
Yeah.
And then, so the body, emotions, mind, spirit, the daily acknowledgement and connection with the divine. My day wouldn't start, and I have a sense that yours wouldn't start either before that happens. It's a pleasure to sit at the table with my morning coffee and my readings and my practices, connecting with a greater source than myself and affirming our oneness.
Yes.
And the last, which would be the emotion, daily connection to my core, my emotions. Okay, I have learned that I feel it either in my heart and my other hand's on my belly. Okay, and that's where I will feel it. And connecting to my core, allowing my feelings and moving. If I said, that's not quite right, then we'll move them, take an action step. I like to say, become the alchemist, mix up the ingredients, change the perception a little bit. So there you have it.
That's great.
All 4 elements: body, emotion, mind, spirit.
Just like that. And like you say, it was a surprise, but no surprise. Like, wow, if I had tried to come up with something to fit into all those four
Mm-hmm.
categories, it might have been difficult. But when I just think about what it is I actually do, and that's a lot of what this show is about, is that we are not a one-dimensional being. You know, we do have a physical body, thank heavens, that we get to play here on this planet, but we also have our brain and our mental body. And I always separate the brain and the mind, they are two different things. And then we have emotions, I mean, we just do. And we also have a spirit that needs to be nourished and paid attention to. And that spirit can also be spiritual, a connection, like you did say, to something that's higher, that's greater, that's bigger than ourselves, or that is the unity of everyone, you know, on the planet. And that's a powerful way to for you to express how you connect with your authenticity is actually looking for it. I mean, actually checking, is it here? Whoops,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what have I done with it? Whoops, where did it go? Very
Right.
important. I love that. Um, One of the things that you wrote to me was that you connect with the fact that life is sacred,
Yes.
and everything that we've ever gone through or about to go through was necessary and important. And I love the concept of saying we're an alchemist, and we can change the perception of what happened. We can look through it through a different lens and realize, you know, the good in something that might have been painful. Why do you think that our authentic self is so important to the world?
Mm. I feel that if we know we are not being who we truly are, we have a responsibility to enliven and awaken the truth of who we are. This is where our magic happens. When I first left public school and I was imagining what I was going to do, how I was going to use my life, I did a little doodle and it said, show the world your magic. The magic of connection contributes to the good of all. So if you're somebody or I'm somebody, or I've heard people say, you know, what is my purpose? I don't even know. I can't do this or I can't do that. Well, can we connect with ourselves? Can we show up at the grocery store authentically and maybe offer a smile? The world needs us to be who we are. And I feel it's a vibration. We're emitting it out to the world. So it's like a little beam of light. Hey, this is who I am. It creates a high vibration that can be felt by others. And I feel it invites others, you know, hey, she's being her. I'm in the store. I'm going, hey, you know, or whatever. But if a good song comes on, you know, by the Bee Gees or
Might be
something.
singing along, right? I
Yeah,
love that.
so the world needs us. This is an inside job. It's fulfilling. And then again, we are generating this gift out to the world in a meaningful way. And Denise, that is one of the reasons I love Ageless Grace. I say when I teach, sometimes one of my one-liners is, I'm like the Energizer Bunny. You put the music on, I'm on. Okay. No, we don't plan it. We know our basic tool we're doing in Ageless Grace and our focus, but let it just come, this joy, this childlike joy, and feel good. It goes far beyond the classroom.
Yes.
So yeah.
It does. I know that probably everyone viewing this has experienced what you were talking about. That person in the grocery store, the drugstore, that's kind of humming or whistling,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, or they say something really funny to you, and they're a complete stranger, but they make a comment, and
Yep.
it's funny. Or even when someone, I don't know, compliments me and I don't know them and they're a stranger and they say, you know, whatever, I like your blouse, whatever it might be. I think to myself, now that's a nice person. I like that person. And not just because they complimented me, but because I can see that they're being genuine, they're being
Yeah.
real and what you're calling authentic. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're right. It does. it does have a vibration, an energy that travels out far beyond just me being me or you being you. It affects other people in so many ways. I mean, you are an amazing facilitator. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
as a teacher, I wish I was had been young enough to be in your classroom because that would have been a great way to go to school. But I've been in your workshops. I've been in your when you're teaching Ageless Grace tools, and you are authentic. You are the real deal, the real thing. And I think a lot of people think in order to I don't know, deliver a message, they need to be a speaker or a show host or a presenter, an entertainer. And that's just not true. You're right. If we're just our authentic selves going about our daily lives and what we do is garden and go to the grocery store or work on cars or whatever it is that we might do, that we're in fact making a huge influence on others as long as we're doing it from the real place of the real us.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's very, very powerful. You told me that there was a time in your life when you really suffered from panic attacks, and do you
Hmm.
feel like you'd like to share that?
I
Um,
would. I would. And it's because it's an authentic part of me. And perhaps there's somebody out here in our audience that can see themselves through what I have to say, or might be inspired to take another step. Okay, so first of all, I had panic attacks, and when I tell you a little bit more about my story after this, I will make it very clear that they were debilitating and they got worse and worse. And it was because I was so disconnected from my real self. I didn't even know how to be myself, but I'll come back to that. So when we're experiencing, this is the world according to me right now, if we're experiencing anxiety, I feel it means that there's a part of our heart that is not connected. It's been disconnected from the flow of who we are. We forget that we are immensely powerful and we can make this shift. It took me many years to make a major shift because I didn't know if I could do it. But this dissonance, and I love the word dissonance because as a musician, dissonance and consonance, and in music history, music theory, we were taught dissonance is, ooh, we don't want to listen to dissonance. Well, imagine that dissonance is now, it's in our body, it's living in our body. And truly, I call this fear. And again, to go back, the fear is that disconnection between the heart and who we are. So I offered you earlier, a few moments ago, these 4 practices that I do. So how do I change the energy? Well, I just literally go down these practices and see what I can do to come back to the love inside of me, that comfort level, the energy flow of comfort in my body. And I've started a practice even more recently of very purposefully connecting with my inner child. And again, for some people, this might sound like, ooh, I don't know about that, if I want to, but I do. And she's still there. And I do want her to know I love her. I'm here for her through fear, through love, through joy, through imagination, and through all of it.
that's beautiful. What do you, is it the 4 practices that you
Mm-hmm.
use to connect with your,
Yep,
would you just kind of mention those 4 practices again? Because some
certainly
people
will. Yes.
tuned in a little late, or
So
some people might have said, gee, I wish I had a pen and paper to write those down.
yeah. So number one, and this is in no order, but body, move my body in a variety of ways. I do it every day. I practice Age with Grace every day. I roll on the floor almost every day, unless I'm on a vacation with somebody who, I don't know if they can do that or whatever, but walking, moving my body anyway. Then connecting with the imagination. So as I was waiting for our interview today, I was starting to get a little nervous. You know, I've done talks lots of times in my life. I do this, but I'm still getting excited / nervous. And so I was like, okay, what are we going to conjure up? And so I conjured up a scenario. You know, here I am, I'm on stage, the lights are flashing. Whoa, you know, here we go. So creating imagination, daily acknowledgement of our own divinity in whatever way works with us, because you and I are no mistake. There's one of us, and it's challenging to believe some days, but connecting with our divinity, and if it feels right for anybody listening, connecting with a source that is greater than ourselves, according to whatever works for you. Lastly, the fourth one is daily connection to my core, my emotions. Again, my one hand is on my belly, my solar plexus. Feeling my feelings, saying, what's there? What's there now? And get with curiosity, feeling my feelings, taking an action step, which might be moving or something, and then becoming the alchemist. How can I shift this? How can I mix these ingredients to create a different perception?
Beautiful. Well, so at the beginning of the show, I mentioned that one of the purposes of this show is to give people some tools or some ideas, some exercises, some things to practice that might invite more grace into their lives, in their body, their mind, their spirit, and their emotions. And so Margie has really covered the gamut of all of those things, because we are a multi-dimensional being. We're not just one thing. We are many things. And then, of course, we get to interact with other people. And then not only do we have 4 dimensions kind of weaving in and out, we might have 8 or 12 or a lot of different emotions and spirits and bodies and minds that are weaving in and out of each other and interacting. And I think that it's very important that we realize we have power of choice. That's what Margie was saying. She chooses to connect with the divine. She chooses to tune in to her emotions every day. She chooses to dance around the room or move or whatever she does. She chooses to ignite and light up her imagination. All of those things also, from the point of view that I love neuroscience and everything that has to do with the brain, but all of those things affect our brain. And of course, our brain is in charge of all the movement of our body. The brain produces hormones and proteins, which have to do with our emotions. The mind works through the brain, and it develops our belief system and our ways of discerning what do we care about, what's important to us, what are our values. And that's all part of what you're talking about. And especially the value of looking at ourselves and saying, was that really me? Was I being authentic? Was I being real and true to myself? So all of these things that Margie's talking about are something that everyone listening and watching can choose to do in your own way. You don't have to do it exactly like Margie described that. She does it, and she was careful to mention several times that this is how I do it. This is what I believe. This is my practice. So you can take it and do it exactly like that, and then start to tweak it and make it your own as well. Or maybe you'll find a different way of moving your physical body so that it feels good to you. All those things are really important. One of the things that you also said to me is, what are the consequences of sort of numbing ourselves out and wearing those masks that we love to put on sometimes. Some of us love to put on.
Well, for me, the consequence was, I say dying, literally dying. The person inside dies, and then we certainly aren't going forth and emitting any good vibes. If anything, we're emitting fear vibes, unable to trust uh, so many things, Denise. Disconnecting from ourselves. I never would have known through the years, and when it's time, I'll talk to you. I'll share a little bit of this. How bad it would be, the disconnection, where it would take me from point A to point whatever Z. Okay, so sometimes people have said to me about, oh, they love my bubbly personality, they love the joy. And one of the things that I have said many times is, the joy you see is equal to the despair I have felt and that numbing. So we numb. I'm sure most people in this audience have heard this. We don't get to selectively numb. We numb everything. That means if I choose to numb the pain, I choose to numb the joy. I'm choosing to live like this. And so I've started to come alive over the past 22 years. I wouldn't have believed I wasn't alive. I was a successful teacher. I, at the time, was married, made lovely dinners, decorated the home for Christmas, all this stuff. Denise, it was a show, a lot of it.
I hear you. I know that. And you had mentioned when you were talking about the panic attacks that came, that you would tell us a little bit more
Yes.
about how you got to that place.
Thank you. And this is raw, people. This is the real deal, Marghi. Okay, and I am here to share with you a little bit about my life, my story, my practices, which I have. And I've shared with you a little bit about my early childhood. I was rambunctious. I was all out there. And I loved being a kid. I can almost tap right into that exuberance. And it little by little got squelched. Again, being the youngest of a minister's family, let's face it, there were expectations. People are looking, people are watching. I was born in 57, so, take it to 1967 if you want, or a little bit earlier, whatever. But I felt, and nothing was spoken so much always in my family. There might have been a or certain things, but a lot of it for me was what I perceived. So it was the look, it was this or that. Okay, I felt little by little that my authenticity was a problem. Well, I began to do a lot of drinking, even pretty earlier than I will mention for real on this. Again, keep in mind when I grew up. And looking back, why do people do any addictive behaviors? Because in my mind, they're all the same. We do them because they're giving us some kind of reward, a soothing, okay? A soothing, a comfort. So I felt like I could be more comfortable in who I was. And I went through quite a number of years in my early career teaching and struggling with drinking for my comfort, and struggling with being able to not drink, being sober for maybe 3 months, maybe 4 months. It could have been a year. It just depended, until looking back now, it's so easy to see, what was that one moment, and talk about what our brains can do for us, positive and negative. What was that one moment that caused me to go against what I had already promised myself? And it usually was a moment where I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel like I fit in. That's very clear in one scenario I have. I know exactly where it was, exactly when it was, exactly why it happened. I was wearing clothes that weren't me. I was in a situation socially that wasn't me. I was wearing shoes that hurt and they were serving wine. And so, but it was sad. At that point, I'd actually been sober almost 4 years. And it took that moment for my brain to convince me, go have a drink, Marghi. You're going to feel better. So we got to question that sometimes. Well, anyway, so I continue. I'm teaching. I'm crafting the illusion of happiness, the surface stuff. I got really good at it. Denise has a lovely home, as you can see. I had a nice home too, on a little island in Southwest Florida. Okay. And I decorated it pretty, had the biggest Christmas tree, but I'm here to tell you, I had to be drunk to do it all. And it came to be that I struggled a lot with wondering how I was going to feel the next morning. There's a lot of shame and fear. You know, we're doing this behavior, it feels good, and then it doesn't feel good. So something happened that changed my life, and it was dramatic. I was already getting panic attacks, and I was monitoring my own self-medicating. I had sought help through the employee assistance program, but the people that were serving me, kind of clinical, I never got to the real core of the issue. For me, they just said, well, it sounds like you're self-medicating. I'm like, yeah. I'm thinking, I'm here telling you I am drinking to get through the days, and you're giving me this intelligent feedback, yes, I'm self-medicating. I spent a lot of time in my days thinking about how I was going to feel. Was I going to drink? Was I not? And you can imagine that dissonance that I was referring to. It's like, this is not good. And that's what happens with our bodies. It's the brain is like, okay, we're not harmonizing here. So one day I had the biggest panic attack. I was 42. It was the biggest, the most scariest panic attack that I could have had. And I was not at home at the time. And I quickly, my car was up on a rack getting new tires. And I went to them. I was in Sears store waiting for the car. And I went to them, Denise, and I said, I need my car back. And it's up there on the rack. And the guy just looked at me. I said, no, I need it back. I need it now. So I never got the tires. Well, anyway, I got home, which was quite a bit of a distance. And I called my doctor. And I can't say that the doctor was anything any more than a regular family medical doctor's office, but there was a nurse. And she got on the phone. And she said, what's the matter? And I was crying. I still get tears in my eyes thinking about it. And I was crying, and I said, I'm afraid. And she said, what are you afraid of? She was very compassionate. And I said, everything. And she said, can you get here? And so at the time I was married, and my husband, he didn't have an understanding. He just simply couldn't. It wasn't within him, but he took me to the doctor. And for me, Denise, that was the start of experimenting with antidepressants, anti-panic drugs, which in turn caused me to feel electric. Living in my body was hell. And I spell it with big letters, hell. I knew if I drank, I'd feel better. I knew if I drank, I'd die. Drink or die, drink or die. What are you going to do? And for some reason, through the grace of God and the determination I was born with, that little girl riding on the bicycle, we're going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get through one day at a time. I didn't use any real programs or plans. For me, I had to just do it. I had to just do it and find my way. But back to my practices, one of the first things that I had the innate knowledge to do, Denise, was walk. I said, I'm just going to walk. I'm just going to walk. And I don't care. I was overweight. I was a mess. But doggone it, I started walking short distances. Don't give in. Life is a journey. And it's a long journey, and it holds gems and possibilities for us. One of my prayers these days, Denise, is surprise me. Surprise me, Lord. You know, show me the magic and the miracles. Surprise me and let me notice it. So little by little, and I never did drink again, by the way. That was 22 years ago. So through these recovery years, you know, joy doesn't simply happen to us. You know, we have to choose it, and we have to keep choosing it. And I'm blessed that I'm not tempted, you see. I'm not tempted to drink anymore. That's over. But I do know that I've got this tendency to want soothing or comfort, as all humans do. We're born with that. So back to the practices. What do? We move our body, connect with our spirituality, feel our emotions, you know, the whole bit. So E.E. Cummings says it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. So
ain't that the truth, right? Ain't that
so
the truth?
when I started taking Nia, I got for the first time into my body, in my body. And that's the challenge for some people to understand. What do you mean you weren't in your body? I wasn't in my body. And then I met Denise. And I was like, oh, this is good here. This is good because I get to play, I get to be authentic, and reach a variety of people. Also, Denise, I want to tell a quick story about the retreat. Is that okay?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So when I was very first an Ageless Grace educator, I was in a group of women that were also ageless, some of them Ageless Grace people. They all knew Denise, and they started talking about the retreat. And I'm like, my ears perked up, and they're saying, oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. And they said, well, they also look for presenters. And I don't know if you know this story, but you know, my whole magical child creation stemmed from my great desire to go to the retreat and be a presenter. And I said to myself, what do you do? What do you like to do? What are your strengths? And I'm thinking, I like to be a kid. I like to tap into my inner child and not be childish, right, but childlike. And so this whole, like, through our acquaintance and through my knowledge and great desire to attend the retreat, I created the initial Magical Child workshop, and then it blossomed.
Right. Oh, I can see why. I remember the very first time that you presented. I did not know this story. And for those who may be listening and don't know what this is, every year the Ageless Grace family of trainers, educators, students, people's moms and sisters, we all get together and we have a retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains at a place called Sanctuary in the Pines at Highland Lake Cove. And the only people who are allowed to or asked to present are people who are Ageless Grace trainers or Ageless Grace educators. And the topics can be anything. I mean, it could be nutrition, it could be walking, it could be art, it could be music, it could be anything. And Marghi shows up with the Magical Child. And I had imagined that this was something you had been doing for years because it was so inviting. It invited us all to be our authentic selves and to release our inner child. It was no kidding, no pun intended. It was magical.
Thank you. And as we come close to our closing time, I do want to say about the retreat, I love it. Okay, connection with like-minded people, however, individuals, very unique individuals that have very different strengths, Yet we have certain weaving going amongst us. I haven't missed one yet.
I know.
I mean, COVID shut us down for 1 year, but it's just we don't know what we don't know, and it's never the same. And I'll tell you something, it's been a very important part. And if any of you out there are listening, again, you don't have to be an Age of Grace educator or trainer to physically be there. We've had plenty of women come and immerse themselves in the camaraderie, the laughter, the learning. Some of them have said, hey, I think I want more of this. And some of them just say, I don't need to be an educator, but I sure love these people. I'm coming back next year.
Right, exactly. We'll tell you a little more about how you can attend the Ageless Grace Retreat when we come to the end of this episode. But there are magical things that take place there, and Margie and her program are definitely part of that. One of the things that you wrote to me when we were talking about this episode is you said sometimes we just have to take a leap of faith.
Yes.
And I think that's certainly what you did now that I'm really hearing it when you said, I'm going to create this program and I'm going to show up and I'm going to share it. And everybody at the end of that session loved it so much. I mean, I heard everybody saying, oh my gosh, Margie, you should do this again. You should start going all over the country and offering this. You should give this program to adults and children and anybody who will show up. Because everybody really loved it and enjoyed it and had a great experience. I really want to thank you for sharing your story and being so real and, as you said, raw
Mhm.
about the journey that you have taken to get to where you are today.
Mhm.
I knew some of it. I didn't know all of
Mhm.
it, but I really appreciate your willingness to open up because I know there are listeners who have had similar journeys or who can relate to what you're talking about. And
Mhm.
I want to remind everybody again that one of the words she's used over and over is I choose to do this. I've chosen to do this. I made up my mind and I chose
Yes.
to take this path or this journey. There are so many things in our lives that we have no control over. I mean, I can't help the weather. I can't really help politics more than my one vote, which is important. I can't change people's attitudes most of the time. They've got those attitudes and they've got those beliefs, and I might as well not even try to change them because that's what they believe. And so, but what I can do is I can choose how I set my mind for the day. And that's what I do, Margie. I get up in the morning and I think, okay, what do I want to believe about this day? What do I want to set as my values for this day or my intention for this day? And why would I, if I ask myself that question, and that's what you do too in your way, why would I choose to say, well, I think I'm going to be crabby today and I want to have bad experiences and I want to kind of butt heads with people today and I hope I get stuck in a traffic jam and get really irritable? Like, why would we choose that? So obviously, if you're able to ask yourself the questions that Margie's presented today and the questions I'm talking about right now, each morning when you get up, you're in charge. You can control your attitude. You can control how you find grace in navigating your daily life, how you can find elegance of movement in navigating the days and the weeks that come to you, whether they're up or whether they're down, whether they're fun or not so fun. You're in charge of that experience and
Mhm.
changing whatever you believe about what it was that happened. And I really love what you talked about, Margie, about that when the dissonance. I'm a musician also. Many of you know that.
Mhm.
And 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 I think a lot of children especially will say things like, I have a stomach ache. Am I, I don't feel good. I don't, and very often, don't you think that it has to do with that they know something's dissonant?
Absolutely. the kids in school, the clinic lady would say, "Oh, please don't send so and so again. He or she's visited me several times today," or the teacher would say that before they came to music. And yet that little one is still feeling that dissonance, and they don't know how to name it. I'll go back to the curiosity. What is it? What is it I'm feeling? The answers don't come immediately sometimes, but yeah.
I think, unfortunately, that a lot of adults, especially, don't ask children what they're feeling.
Yes.
They'll just say, "Oh, your stomach will feel better later," or "Oh,
Hmm.
drink this Pepto
Nothing's wrong
Bismol."
with you.
Yeah, right. Nothing's really wrong with you, whatever, go on. Or go on, go to bed because you don't feel good. But you don't ask them, what is it you're feeling? I loved the symbology of you putting your hand on your heart and your hand on your belly.
Yeah.
And I would you mind if we just kind of ask everybody to do that with us for just a
Yeah,
few
that'd be nice.
minutes? I'm going to back up away from the camera a little bit so that you can see maybe both of my hands. And there's a great comfort in that. I mean, maybe you want to talk us through this, Margie. I don't know, but just the sensation of feeling your hand on your heart, your hand on your gut, because it's a gut instinct, right?
Yes.
And I don't know if you want to talk us through it a little bit or not, or just be quiet, whatever. I leave
Yeah,
it up to
just noticing what's there. And they're two different places. I can't speak for you. I don't know about you, but right now if I sense my heart, not the physical heart, but the emotional heart and the belly. Sometimes they might match, maybe. Again, it's a curiosity. Do they match? Not that they're the same emotion, but in comfort? Or do we have comfort in our heart, but maybe our belly feels uneasy? I like to breathe into it. I like to just notice. And for me, both places offer, again, I'll go back to that word comfort or nurturing, the feminine. I'm here saying this to my own body. I'm here with you. We're here together. For me, that works.
I I agree. I often put my hand on my heart. That's very common
Mm-hmm.
that I do that. But that was interesting what you just said about how they could be different. I never thought of that. And as you said that to me, I realized that mine were different.
Mm-hmm.
There's a thing in my gut that is knowing one thing, and there's a thing in my emotional heart, not my real heart, my physical organ heart, that is emotionally sensing and feeling something different than what my gut is. I
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. That is a powerful thing to realize that the gut and the heart can be different, and
Yeah, the
also that sense.
wisdom. The
Yeah.
wisdom is slightly different. So just checking in. They're both wise.
They are. Well, you and I both came. We mentioned Nia, and I have explained it in other episodes. But Nia is a somatic practice, a movement practice that incorporates martial arts, dance arts, and healing arts. But the underlying premise of Nia is that you can find joy in your body, literally, physically. You can find joy in your body through movement. And that joy, that movement is actually a medicine for your body, your
Yes.
mind, your emotions, your spirit. And of course, that's what Margie has found the way to find her medicine through her body, mind, emotions, and spirits, and not from something outside. So when we practice Nia, one of the things that we do is we talk about the voices of the body speaking to us, and an obvious illustration of that would be, that when we start to get a little ache in our shoulder because we're lifting too much every day, it's just a little whisper. It's kind of saying, I don't know, something's kind of going on here. And then, a week or two later, we're still lifting that big heavy purse or briefcase or whatever we're doing, and it's saying, hello, this is really not good. And then eventually we have pain that screams at us and it says, I've been telling you that this isn't working for my shoulder. And so there are voices in our body, and we want to be able to listen to them before they become screaming pain, needless to say. And that goes right back to finding more pleasure and grace in our lives by doing that. So I love that practice that also made me feel like I was loving and nurturing myself. Thank you. It's a simple thing that we could all decide to do if we just choose to, right? Margie, you have given me so many amazing pieces of joy and information and moved me by sharing your personal story, because you can see, all of you who are watching her, that she is full of joy. Her email is margiesjoy at gmail.com, and it's MARGHIS, Margie's Joy, JOY, at gmail.com. If you want to contact her, get in touch with her about her trainings, her programs, those types of things. So I just have to point out that she has it right in her email, and it's also in the chat if you'd like to look at the chat. But there's one more piece I'm going to ask Margie to share with us, and that is, would you show us one of your favorite tools of Ageless Grace? Because we have been sitting and talking and thinking and chatting for a while, so let's move.
Awesome. I'm going to get my music right here.
Awesome. Margie told me early on that the song she was going to use is Do You Believe in Magic? Now, is that good or what? That's perfect.
Oh, and I invite all of us at this moment to get comfortable in our chair, find a little space. I like to be able to move to the right and to the left and remove anything that might prevent me from enjoying it the most. This tool is tool 12 in Ageless Grace. It is called Express Yourself. The primary purpose of this tool is for our upper body, our arms, and practicing mobility, agility, which is start, stop, and stability, which is strength. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us get our magic wand. Woohoo! And yes, I do. Let's put our magic wand. Woohoo! Now we might want to create, get that a little more down, sparkling lights around our room. Sparkling lights. And what if we had a very large magic wand that took 2 hands? It's a big wand, and we go poof, poof, poof. And let's imagine that we're gathering up some of those magical particles. Oh, I'm getting a lot of them, Denise. And now I'm going to offer them to you. And even blowing them to you. And now, let's imagine we've got a magical tree that we're going to climb, and I'm even going to use my legs. I'm going to climb the magical tree. Maybe it's Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah! And now, here we are at the top of the tree. I've got my legs holding down here. And let's look. And point. Oh my gosh, did you see that? I'm on top of the beanstalk. There, Denise, look, look, look.
I love it. So just moving like that and playing and being childlike can be so powerful for just a minute or two every day. So I invite you all to practice playing, igniting your imagination. It literally, no kidding, lights up the brain. And so that's what we want to do, is activate that brain and our bodies. So I thank you so much for being here on the show, Margie.
Ah,
And I thank all of you for coming to Living a Graceful Life. You can visit agelessgrace.com and learn more about the Ageless Grace program. And you can see our DVDs, our flashcards, our downloads, whatever you would like. There are free things, there are things you can buy. And Margie has a certification coming up, and it's June 10th and 11th and 12th.
yep.
You'll find it under trainings, and it's a certify you to teach, or you can attend the first part, which is 4 hours long, and you can just learn more about Ageless Grace and what the tools are. So I hope that you might think about joining Margie as she ways to ignite your imagination. So I want to remind you one last time that it's never too late to begin
That's
making
right.
choices to create the life that you want to live. Thank you so much for being here. I think if we all made some positive choices like Margie, we could change the world.